Welcome to episode 4 of the Cancer Sisters podcast. We are 2 weeks post, I forgot the word.
Lobectomy.
I'm Nicole.
And I'm Amanda. And this is episode 4, Falling Through the Cracks.
Tom Petty's Free Fallin'. Sorry, that's all you get this episode.
Still sounded really good.
Thanks. We're going to do something a little different because Amanda recorded a few minutes of her own thoughts while alone, and we're going to start with that. Here we go.
Okay.
And I do have a few comments on my own.
Well, I am sitting outside, and so this may not be the best recording, but we're going to try because I'm sitting by myself, and one of the things I wanted to talk about and just kind of get through is emotional for me, and it's easier to talk about by myself because if I say it in front of someone, I tend to get a little emotional. So on the heels of our last podcast, we were talking in the hospital, and what I had the chance to observe is how wonderful my brother-in-law is and how he was just there every minute for my sister, which is so important. It was the thing that provided her so much comfort through like this major event in her life, major surgery. So as I got to thinking one night when I got home, it struck me that I'm going to have a major surgery in the future when I am finished with this round of chemotherapy. And I don't have that. And it's not to say I don't have a wonderful support system and my family is amazing, but I don't have my one person. And this is something we'll get into when we talk to a little bit more as a group, like what it's like with my sister being married, going through treatment, and me being single. And I've had a lot of, like when I referenced it in the first podcast, people were so rude and they were like, oh my God, you're single. How are you going to go through this? And I thought, well, I just have to, because it's a strange experience to explain to someone, because you're like, duh. But when this is something that someone cannot help you through, and meaning no one can help me through my cancer treatment. I have to take the nasty drugs. I have to get through it all. And that is something that you can only do yourself. You have to have the willingness to fight for it, to do it. And it's not to say, people can't drive you or provide you food or do any of the things that people do for you. That's not what I mean. It's like you have to find the will inside yourself to get up and fight. But I'm thinking about this major surgery I'm going to have and who's the person I'm going to call in the middle of the night or that will stay overnight with me. And I don't have it. So it led me to some other thoughts about being single, which was that as I approach 50, I'm a year and a half away from that, I always sort of thought to myself that I would not be single at 50. And I didn't want to be single at 50 because I'm so self-sufficient, yet I really, really want my person. And then the next thought struck me, which is I might not make it to 50. And that's the thing I can't say out loud in front of someone else without it being very shocking. But hearing stage 4, hearing metastasis, my brain went straight to mortality. And all I can think right now is that I still want the chance. I still want the chance to be married if I get that chance. I still just want my person, my life partner, whatever you want to call it. But I thought I'd have a husband. And to go further into that, I have people in my life that I tried dating and didn't work out, that will check on me from time to time, but they're not really in my life right now. And I'm talking about some men specifically because they don't want to deal with this. They're not the person that's going to stand by me. They're not the person that's going to dig in by my side and deal with all I'm dealing with right now. The treatments and me being sick and me being so fatigued I can't work, and this surgery I keep talking about, which has, a week in the hospital and then 3 to 4 months of recovery, and then a second surgery and some more recovery. And that's the most difficult part of this. Last time I talked about it, I was just crying a bunch of tears, and right now I can say it fairly emotionless. But it's a really upsetting kind of reality is the word I want. So that's something we're going to dig into. And I know my sister has comments on this, and we're going to go further into it, and she's going to talk more about the support that she does have, and it'll be a real interesting perspective. So I wanted to bring it up because there are other people just like me that are going through this that don't have their person, and I feel like it's something we should discuss. So more on that soon. Thanks for listening.
As you suspected.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things I really want to talk about is, and you talked about in your own comments, is the difference between our circumstances. And, I've been married almost 23 years.
Yeah.
It's been through a lot of
amazing
shizot in 23 years.
Mm-hmm.
And Trent is and has been, just phenomenal. Like, I cannot complain at all. I do.
No.
To him a little.
Yeah, well, you can complain to him, but he's been amazing.
I do criticize a little, but that's like sometimes
it's
my
normal.
job sometimes. No, but he's been absolutely phenomenal, and so he is my one person, although I am surrounded by people, to include you.
Right.
And so you talked about your difference in not having that one person and your desire to have that one person, to have your partner for life. I also kind of want to challenge you to reframe that a little bit, because it's totally, as human beings, we're built that way. We crave companionship and we crave other people, and that's
right.
And that's totally normal. But I kind of wondered if you would think about, or maybe reframe, or kind of talk about what you do have. You sort of glossed over the people, family and friends you have in your life, but who, for instance, you said will be the person you call in the middle of the night, or who might stay with you, or who might say, come stay at my house.
Right.
Just to kind of think about how your situation is not your ideal, but is wonderful nonetheless.
I don't discount it, but as I have referenced before, the hardest part of us having to go through this together is you're my person. Like, you are the first person I would go to. Mm-hmm. Okay. And George and Heather, and and certain things, mom's around, and then that goes, like Aunt Susan, and even longtime family friends that are great friends with Mom, and they've offered all kinds of support. And I have wonderful girlfriends, and a counselor said to me a few years ago, this was like pre-cancer, that, and I really didn't like her perspective, because she was like, screw finding your soulmate, and talking about how most of the time, if you're going to end up married, you meet that person in college. And I was like, well, I passed that by. But also relying on your girlfriends and I think there is something to that theory, that you have, like, I'm so fortunate to have these lifelong friends, and like Lauren being one of them, when we met when we were 13, and some of my college friends, and Layla, there's too many people
From
to just,
adulthood,
right,
yeah.
into adulthood. Just too many people to actually mention. But I know that I can call on them. But the hard part is everybody's married, has kids, has jobs. So the hard part is there's not the one person that can take off work to be home with me. Like I will need round the clock care when I get home. And that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah. I have a couple different thoughts about that, but before we get into that, one of the things I was, I just kind of lost it. Oh, no, I remember.
Okay. We're both medicated. So.
Sorry for the coughing and the heavy breathing. That's apparently what life without the upper lobe is like after 2 weeks. But
don't apologize.
But even, Trent was taking care of the lawn, which I'm very grateful for. And both of my daughters were off working. And I'm taking medicines that preclude me from driving.
Right.
Also, not really pushing, pulling, or lifting with my right arm makes driving not the best choice anyway. But, that I have to call you. Also, like twice today, friends, I called Amanda for help. And I know some of our friends who are listening are like, why didn't you call me?
Yeah.
Because so many people have offered and sincerely offered and would do. Grocery pickup was one that I asked you to do. And then, for you to come back and get me so we could podcast today. What I know I could ask. I know I could ask so many people.
It just ends up being easier because, there's no explanation. You don't have to say, when are you free? And still, if I were the person listening that was our friend, I would be like, that doesn't matter. Like, I know, but we also live 3 minutes apart. So it's like, it took me like 3 minutes to get to Giant Eagle and then
maybe
20 minutes of waiting and then 3 minutes to get to your house. But
4.5 minutes.
Yeah, 4.5.
Yeah.
But we do rely so much on each other. That's where I'm coming from. And who knows when I'm going to have this surgery, but like it'd be amazing if when I have my scan next week, they're like, we got it all. It's gone, right? It's gone. Because then I'm calling my surgeon, like speed dial. Dude, let's get this going, or the two surgeons. Because I just want to get it out of the way. But then even when, way back when we were talking before and I was supposed to have this in March, we were still running into this trouble because we're like, do I stay at mom's and where do my dogs go? And we sort of landed like it would probably be best if I stayed at home.
And your dogs went somewhere else.
Dogs went somewhere else, which is a challenge of its own, but it's still a consideration. But I'm putting the cart before the horse because I got to get through the scan first.
Yes.
To see what's what.
Well, it's okay to plan and dream because I think we were in a place, and we talked about it here, we were both in a place where I think I described it as little balloons of hope. And for a while there, I took a dip into glass half empty. And, I had to have that biopsy in the lymph node on my neck, and I wasn't, like, my thought process was, I'm not waiting to find out if it's cancer. I'm waiting to find out what kind of cancer it is.
Yeah.
And lo and behold.
It wasn't at all.
It wasn't at all.
Which is amazing.
And I thought, it's not possible that the nodule they found in the upper lobe of my lung is it. It's going to be in my lymph nodes. And, that whole process was tied to the inflamed node in my neck. But
yeah.
Also, lo and behold, not cancerous. So it's, generally speaking, I think you and I are both optimists. And we do have hope. And, it's okay. That was a long-winded way for me to say it's okay to look ahead and it's okay to plan.
Thanks. Well, I do, and I was planning, work stuff again today because it was like my brain flipped on. Been very much in a in a hole because my weeks have been especially hard with treatment, and you're going through this really hard spot. So, like, I really couldn't think about anything else. So it was all health related. And today my brain was like, let's think about work. So I started thinking about what fall looks like. And
I can see clearly now the rain.
I had to quiet myself so you could sing. I know, we shouldn't laugh. But
sorry I cut you off.
no, it's totally fine. So, yeah, I mean, the first time I talked to you, well, last week about those thoughts, like how I was feeling, I was full of tears and full of emotion and very much in a deep, dark hole about being single and mortality. I went straight, gosh, am I even going to be alive at 50? And I mean, nobody knows. I can fall back on that. We never know what's going to happen, but...
You did have some pretty serious comments I do want to respond to.
Yeah.
I don't see it lighting up. So, I think I touched on this a little bit before, that I felt really ignorant after the conversation with your doctor, talking about your chemotherapy plan and how important it would be to get into immunology, because you couldn't keep taking chemotherapy. It's not a way to live.
Right.
And I don't remember what I said to him actually, but that was shocking to me because, I never thought of it as like this, even though when I stop to think about it, I just feel stupid because, yes, I understand metastasis. So I understand that means the potential for the cancer to come back or to come and crop up in other places. And I didn't think about that's like, now that's how you're living. Mm-hmm. That was part of it. Still, this might just be the way that my brain works. I also didn't jump right to mortality for you. I just never did. And you have said that to me a couple of times. And when I listened to the recording from the beginning of the podcast that you did on your own, about will I even make it to 50 as we approach 48 and a half. Again, right. Gorgeous 48 and a half year olds.
Of
just
course.
Gorgeous.
Just gorgeous.
Just glowing, also known as oily skin.
Yeah, but we have great foreheads.
Yeah, this is why our voices, not our camera. But, I just that just didn't ever occur to me. And for my own self, and I know I'm repeating myself, but for my own self, I didn't feel that way, except for my first diagnosis of cancer, was the thyroid cancer. And that's when I had all these feelings of mortality. So it's not that I don't understand them. It's just having my thyroid removed and then knowing that was it for the thyroid cancer. And then the chemotherapy and the radiation and getting the remission news for the rectal cancer. And then, we hit upon your diagnosis before mine, and it felt like, man, this sucks. Mm-hmm. But this is just what you have to go through. This is what you have to do. It never occurred to me. I realize my conversation here is a little disjointed.
No,
but like when your doctor said, "Oh no, we're not talking about months. We're talking about years." It was almost like he physically slapped me in the face because it never occurred to me that we were talking about months of your life. Mm-hmm. It never occurred to me that we were just talking about years of your life.
I think it's like my brain and yours would have done this. Like, you just shut off that part. It's so bad to think about. And because we are generally positive thinking, in which it's required to go through something like this, that you only put positive thoughts in your head. But I also think it's kind of like your brain protecting you not to think that way. But in that visit, that when you were there with me, it's, yeah, you're going to live with this the rest of your life. Like and he believes, oh, I'm going to live like a long, healthy life. But that's why it would be important for me to get into immunology. You don't have to stifle this.
Nobody wants to listen to me cough.
You're healing. But because if I have to have chemo again, which he's saying, I could kind of expect it, because once a metastasis, always a metastasis. Is that a new phrase? Should that go on a t-shirt?
Maybe a bumper sticker.
A bumper sticker.
That's not nice.
No way. Oh my gosh.
Siri, sorry to offend you.
Siri on my Apple Watch. That was hilarious. How about that for timing? Thanks, Siri. Wow. Oops. Don't do it again. Okay.
Technology.
That was good.
That's not nice.
That's nice. I put the Australian guy in there because he's less annoying than the woman. Mm-hmm. We all know that. But anyway. So, yeah, I mean, that's the hard part. And that's kind of why, when I recorded, it was calm. But that's a really deep emotional place for me. Because I'm looking at, the title of our episode, Falling Through the Cracks, I kind of feel like I fell through the cracks. Like, how did I make it this far and I still don't have anybody? It's like, this is not what life was supposed to look like at 48 and a half next week. No. Yeah, it is. I don't even know what day it is. On the 17th, 48 and a half. But, this is not what I expected in any way. And I kind of gave up, those expectations, just like I realized that having kids wasn't in the cards for me. But I'm just a little sick of being patient and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. And I feel like I fell through the cracks.
Yeah.
So
I don't mean to ever say that, this, you're single because it's your choice. I do think, though,
it has been my choice for much of the time.
It has been your choice. But I do think, and I've talked to you about this before, you mentioned in that, people that you've dated who are still sort of in your life, where my perspective is it's almost like they clutter up your life and there's no room for the right person to come along. No, we're sitting in your bedroom. I'm staring at your closet, mostly black clothing. But it's like, maybe there's some things in there that you could get rid of because the perfect sweater is out there for you and there's no room for it on the shelf. It's not that simple, but there's people who give you friendship, but some of the people you've spoken about, they give you friendship, but it's conditional.
Yeah.
And whether it's friend or a romantic relationship, I mean, it has to be unconditional. It's not fulfilling otherwise. And so I think they sort of clog up the space. And the other part of that is, for me, and I know this is kind of mean. I've said it to you before. But me, I'm always walking that line with you, right? Is this mean or is this just sincere? But when you let those other people clog up your life with their part-time friendship, you're also not letting yourself be the person who is open and ready to meet the right person. And that's where I started with, I don't mean to put this blame on you. I think this is a dynamic that it's not like you're making this choice. I just think that that's sort of the domino effect of accepting that sort of part-time friendship from those people who are emotionally unavailable.
Yeah. And I don't think you're wrong, but also at this phase I'm in right now, like, I wouldn't even want to try to meet someone. I feel terrible about how I look. I feel like I have very limited anything to offer. I mean, I'm sick. I'm going to get my foot looked at tomorrow.
That's good.
Which is good. But I've been hobbling around for more than a month. I have no hair.
Wow, but you have a
good
looking
I
bald
gotta
head.
have a good bald head. And the tattoo helps. I mean, most people look at me like, oh, I think she probably shaved her head on purpose. But, and I know I'm talking about physical things, but it affects me mentally. And then there's the whole thing with the reason I have to have surgery anyway, which we might get into that sometime, but it causes me to have some kind of social anxiety, which means I am in no way open and ready to meet anybody right now. It's just,
I do mean generally speaking.
no, and I know, and it's sad because there's nobody in the past that would give me even full-time friendship or any kind of romantic partnership. There's people that they care enough to check in and see how I'm doing, but no one who would really they would not answer the phone in the middle of the night. You know, those are only my girlfriends. So
Password is scrubs. I won't sing again. There's been enough of that in this episode.
Well, yeah, little blips. Everybody likes it now. But we can switch gears and talk about why this episode title
Is falling
fits
through
for
the
you
cracks.
is falling for the cracks.
Yeah. Well, I think it applies to a couple of different things, which is why it's a fitting title. But I have in the last year been really, really angry. We talked about the faith and the feelings episode, but I've also been really angry with the ways I've had to question and advocate for myself, which I just think are ridiculous.
Oh yeah.
Just so ridiculous. We talk about the most recent experience. I was discharged from the hospital last Saturday when we recorded episode 3. I got the chest tube taken out, 4 hours hanging out in the hospital room, and then a chest x-ray, and my lungs looked pretty good. And then I had that paintball. I needed to wait for somebody to take the paintball out.
Yeah. You were there for 2-3 more hours.
Yeah.
After that.
Right, and it was just, when those things happened, I was physically okay enough to go home, but with absolutely almost no information.
Yeah.
First of all, leaving the hospital was a total debacle.
I don't think I've heard about that even.
So they took the chest tube out, re-recorded episode 3.
Yeah.
I got the chest x-ray. We were still recording. I got the news that I could go home. But it was Saturday. It was getting late in the day. And the nurse told me that she could take out my IVs, but she could not remove the paintball, which was something they put in during surgery and I don't anatomically know how deep it was, except that it was put in during surgery. And it was literally a ball of either, lidocaine or novocaine or some kind of cane that controlled the pain on the surface at the skin level.
Yeah.
Because I had so many incisions. And so the nurse said she wasn't able to remove that. Surgeon had to do it. Well, my surgeon had already gone home. So she needed to find some surgeons or a surgeon. And these 2 men walked in, said, "Are you Nicole?" I said, "Yeah." And they said, "We're here to remove the paintball." I kind of shifted in my seat. And there were 2 of them because one was instructing the other how to do it. And then when it was over...
They didn't even ask you if it was okay, if the resident was doing it, or
No.
student?
It just happened. And I'm open to that, right? So that wasn't a big deal. I was irritated at that point, but I was open to it. And they left shortly thereafter, and I got up because I needed to get out of that glorious hospital gown because I was going home.
Right.
And I stood up, and the pain ball and the tubes and everything fell onto the floor because they left it there sitting in the chair with me.
What the hell?
And I was like, I mean, it's a good thing I can handle that because it's gross, and I could see, I could see from the blood how far it was into my body,
Jeez.
which was gross. But I said to myself, like, what's going on? So, I hobbled on over, and getting dressed was like exercise.
Right.
Took a break while I was doing it. Well, while I'm changing my clothes, transport shows up with a wheelchair to take me down to the car, and Trent had already gone home to take Ava to work and whatnot, and was coming back for me. I didn't know transport was coming.
Right.
So I had to send him away. He did leave his wheelchair, but we, part of going home was also getting prescriptions for pain medications. We sent them to our regular pharmacy, which was closed.
Of course.
The two surgeons who removed my paintball were able to put in a new request to a different pharmacy, which online said it was open until 10 p.m. It was not. So after I sent transport away, I pressed my call button, and a tech came by, and a little back and forth, and we found a 24-hour pharmacy to get the prescription sent. So she walked away. Trent came back. We sat for another 45 minutes or so. And by that time, it was shift change. And our nurse walked by and then sort of backpedaled. And she said, "Didn't anybody tell you that we got your prescription sent over?"
Oh, gosh.
So, yeah, that's just...
No, how about you do it?
So...
God.
So we left, and it was a brutal ride and a long wait at the pharmacy, which, I'm not going to complain about because that is just, it was going to be a brutal ride whether I went straight home or went to the pharmacy first.
Of course, yeah.
But, yeah, I felt like, well, okay, that was clumsy.
Mm-hmm.
I felt like I fell through the cracks there. And then, I had... somebody at some point said I would receive home care, Cleveland Clinic nursing home care, and I haven't
At all, still? And
no.
you looked on your chart, and then you got the runaround, and you finally called your doctor. So what happened?
Well, what happened is I contacted my surgeon's office about the home care, and then, I called the home care number, and they said that my request had been not declined. Discarded. Why can I not remember that name? That word. But my home care had been discarded, so I contacted my surgeon's office, and through my chart, when they got back to me, they said, "Okay, we checked into this for you, and it looks like you're now under the care of your primary care physician, and they're in charge of it." So I'm like, I didn't know that when I left surgery that my primary care was now in charge of my follow-up, and neither did my primary care physician.
It's ridiculous. And who's your appointment with on Friday?
There was no communication. I have a follow-up with somebody in the surgeon's office on Friday.
You're 100% telling them.
Oh, I have a lot to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I
did.
With you?
Yes.
Because if not, I will.
Yes.
Okay.
So I did get connected with my primary care office, and they did their best to connect me with home care. But somewhere along the way, somebody gave somebody an old phone number and an old address.
You have got to be kidding me. I'm going to lose my mind right now.
So,
oh my God.
I called again today.
Oh.
And I got a call back from the home care person who said the nurse would be calling me. And the nurse called, and she said, "I'm so glad I have the right phone number." And then she gave me, and she said, we should check your address. And it was also an address from almost 6 years ago.
Oh my God.
And I've never had home care. So why this home
Seriously.
care had, and I have not been at this primary care's office
with the old
address. I don't know. It's like this vortex of nonsense. So, you know, I have 4 incisions. I want to know. And I want to know if my shortness of breath and my coughing and the random, maybe their lungs or muscle spasms. I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, there's things that make me make funny sounds when I stand up. If any of that's normal, if that's what's expected. There was, you know, beyond look for these signs of infections and don't drive while taking narcotics and don't push, pull, or lift with the right arm.
Yeah.
No information.
It's so irresponsible because think about if you weren't like as educated as you were. Like there's so many people that don't know anything. Like they, you know, I kind of feel that way about this port that I have because they were like, don't lift over 10 pounds and you have to wait till it heals. They said I could get in and swim and everything. But I have been bruised for 2 months and there was still a stitch in there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So are you healed?
I'm like, exactly. So I got treatment on Monday and she's like, there's a stitch trying to come out. I'm like, pull it. Like, for Christ's sakes. And look at it now. I mean, look how bruised I am.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, you're bruised and I have to go right in there. And I'm like, you know? And so, the weird thing is it makes because it goes into this carotid and it, like, I can't, if I strain, I can feel it in my neck and I can't stand it. And so I'm like, I can't even lift an 8-pound dumbbell for fear of this port. It's ridiculous. So now I'm just getting fired up because of what happened to you. So anyway.
Yeah.
But if we sum it, we come all the way back around. It's literally, if you don't advocate for yourself or have somebody advocating for you, you can't get anybody to care. You can have a really great nurse, and you did, you know, but then they go home and you start the process all over again.
Well, I mean, and as it should be, like, we had trouble at the pharmacy when I left. Like, Trent walked in and they said, we don't have anything. So he came back and he called the nurse's station. Well, you know, as it should be, the nurse who took care of me during the day did not report to the incoming nurse about me since I was being discharged. So by the time we had to call back about the prescriptions,
didn't even know you.
No. And thankfully, you know, the day nurse did take good notes or her record keeping so that they could find out what we were talking about and help fix the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, you know, it's just kind of clumsy. It's, if I think way back when I had the thyroid biopsy and those results were inconclusive. You know, it was still likely cancer, but those results were inconclusive. They said, you need to see a surgeon. And I don't quite remember how the referral system happened, but I had a surgeon to call and I couldn't get in for about 6 weeks.
Ridiculous.
And I know, you know, intellectually, the kind of cancer I ended up having was really slow growing. That 3 of the 4 types of thyroid cancer are really slow growing. So that does not set off any alarms, except the alarm going off in my head and my heart.
Like, I have cancer.
Right?
Why am I going to wait 6 weeks?
Why am I going to wait 6 weeks? And I know that I'm not unique in that.
Oh, no.
You know? And then in last summer, after my colonoscopy, you know, I was scheduled with a surgeon I had never met for the colonoscopy, because that happens all the time.
Right.
And that's fine. He had the unfortunate news of saying, you've got this mass that looks like cancer. He actually never said cancer. He just said there's a mass.
Suspicious mass.
You need to take care of it.
Right.
But what happened there is when, that doctor or that doctor's office in the follow-up said, do you have an oncologist?
No.
No. Aren't you supposed to help me out there?
Yeah.
And it was like, oh, it's on me. Like, one hand of that is I appreciate, maybe I do know somebody, or maybe I get a recommendation from somebody. But when you're in such a whirlwind and a panic, to have to do your own research to find an oncologist, it's like you don't have a referral system.
Right.
So how that did happen is I was so flummoxed. I called my primary care physician. Shout out to Dr. Pansner. And I was able to talk to him the same day. And I told him how frustrated and terrified I was. And I said, I don't know an oncologist. I don't have an oncologist. How am I supposed to pick somebody? And he said, well, if you're open to it, I know an oncologist. And I said, yes, absolutely. And he was able to call her, and I was able to see her pretty quickly. Shout out to Dr. Leininger, also known as
Liney.
Liney. Yeah, but and Dr. Panzer's always been that kind of doctor for me, but Dr. Leininger is his sister, so he did have he did have an easy way to call her and get me scheduled pretty quickly. But still, it's there are plenty of people who are not who don't see a primary care physician regularly and don't have that relationship or those resources, and then where do you go?
Yeah. Well, and it was my gynecologist that was the person that, shout out to Dr. Peterson, was that she said, I'm going to make a call. And the very next day, I was at an oncologist's office. Took a couple steps, and then I landed in, but then I got into...
You did not fall through the cracks.
I did not fall through the cracks. It was amazing. And so... not that I wanted to go back to Dr. Pleat. When you graduate from your oncologist, you're supposed to maybe just see them out in the world and not see them in the office again. But I got him back, I got my nurse back, I got everybody. And so there was comfortability, and they knew me. And, at the first visit, they're like, why are you here? But at least I was still enveloped in care, and I feel so fortunate for that. But there are so many reasons why you've just got to ask questions, and you've got to advocate, and you've got to stand up and say, like, this isn't good enough. So, and
we have to keep that in mind, because a couple people have reached out to you.
Oh yeah,
and who are willing to talk with us and be guests.
I just can't wait. We have so many good guests lined up.
And this is one question we need to ask, because unfortunately I think it's common. Like we just did here, you and I can talk about practitioners who are compassionate, and they listen, and they take action, and they help, and they do everything they can to calm our anxieties and our fears about these these pretty scary situations we're facing. And I even had, I think one of the, based on the way people spoke about him, like a surgeon with an excellent reputation for my lobectomy. But I've got questions about what goes on in that office, because why is there no follow through?
Right.
I had some really lovely people and excellent practitioners as nurses in the intensive care and in the step down unit. But what happened on Saturday?
Right.
Why does it all come kind of crumbling down? So those are questions I think that'll be interesting to ask other people about their experiences.
For sure. Well, and we were, Lori reached out to us on Facebook, and, she's still an oncology nurse, or she had her beginnings as an oncology nurse. I need to reread that.
Not working right now.
That's right. But that was one of her main concerns. Like, she said to both of us, like, advocate, pay attention, because there's, because of the medical system. I mean, we could spend a long time on that. But we're not on this one.
We're not. Well, no, and I think sometimes I have the habit of just kind of complaining. We don't want to complain.
No. We're going down to a
We
deep
want to
hole.
share.
We're sharing.
We don't want to complain. Well, thanks for listening, friends.
We appreciate it, and hopefully the perspective that we could give you on our different situations, I think that can speak to some people. That's kind of why I felt like it's important to talk about what I go through that's different from what you're going through, just because I know that it'll speak to people. And the one thing I can say is, don't be afraid to ask for help and rely on those amazing friends. Because we both have an amazing network, and a lot of it overlaps.
Poor friends.
I know, right?
They're going through it too. Well, until next time.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye.